From turning lower rated support weapons into potentially S tier choices, to trivializing some of the strongest enemies in the game, to most importantly, pushing back against one of the most discussed weapon balance philosophies in the Helldivers 2 development team. The War Pack has just revolutionized so much in Helldivers 2. Creating powerful weapons has been something the development team has been rather reluctant about since the 60-day plan that launched in October of last year. If you're a little bit out of the loop, let me quickly fill you in just a few short seconds.
What happened? What led into it?
We could see in the period following launch that we did have some weapons that were overrepresented. So players were playing with specific weapons more than others. And what we ended up doing in some of the cases was that we nerfed these weapons to make the weapons, like, to balance them a bit more.
And bring them into line with the rest of the loadouts.
Exactly. And in hindsight, that was maybe not the smartest thing that we could have done, because what often ended up happening was that we took weapons that players loved and we made them more boring, right?
And it was very, very well received by the community, by the way, and as far as I'm concerned, we haven't had a similar issue since then. But this created its own fair share of issues. The development team is now trying to steer clear of nerfing as much as they possibly can, so as a result, anytime a new warbond is introduced, they'll come along oftentimes with extremely underwhelming weapons and stratagems, so as to sort of protect themselves from having to nerf them. Instead, they can release these weapons in their weak state and then buff it over the course of the next few weeks or months. But this time around, they've just released what I consider to be the most game-changing stratagem in the entire game: the War Pack. This bad boy can transform some of the previously B tier or C tier weapons into S tier monsters. And I'm sure some of you are wondering, how the hell can a 10-meter blink play such a large role in our performance? I'll talk about a specific weapon here soon, but the overall reasoning is how important positioning is in Helldivers 2. Matter of fact, positioning is arguably the biggest difference maker between performing well and performing poorly in this game. Take for example weapons such as the grenade launcher, the crossbow, the arc thrower, the torture, the eruptor, and dozens of other weapons. All of these weapons share one distinct similarity: they'll pretty much nearly require you to be on high ground, or at least somewhat distant from the target in question. Which of course circles back to how important positioning is in this game, which of course makes it no surprise as to why the War Pack is so invaluable. The list of weapons in which the War Pack pairs extremely well with is so incredibly large that I would spend nearly an hour talking about all of them. So, as to better showcase how these small yet surprisingly powerful teleports are, let's just use the Flamethrower as one example. Starting on the bugs, the Flamethrower wielder will easily manhandle all of the small to medium units, regardless of whether they're wearing the War Pack or not. Of course, adding in the War Pack into the equation, it allows the diver to just continually increase his distance between the diver and the swarm without ever needing to let go of the fire button. Also being able to easily avoid units who push through the fire before going down as well. The issues for the Flamethrower user, however, starts at around chargers, impalers, and biotitan. For the chargers, there is nothing like it. Dominating them just became easier than ever, even if the player is not wielding a thermite or an ultimatum. The War Pack opens up a lot of space for you to put these big guys down with far less effort. As for the impalers, avoiding their tentacle has also never been easier. Usually a bit of a sprint and a warp is more than enough to get out of range of the current tentacle. As for killing them, it's business as usual with the anti-tank weapons, but even if the player did not bring anti-tanks, they can still bait the tentacles away from the impaler and then teleport in range to put them out of their misery with the Flamethrower. Lastly, for the Biotitan, it's even more so powerful against them, as the Biotitans realistically only have two sets of attack. The Stomp attack, which is easily avoided with a simple teleport, and the Spit attack, which if timed correctly and used as he's about to start spitting out, you can avoid it entirely as well. And then, of course, can proceed to kill off the Biotitan with any of the anti-tank choices, or again, if nothing's equipped, you can just burn them to death and they'll go down eventually. All of this is a lot harder to achieve without the incredible power of the War Pack. Over at the Illuminate, we've got similar story for most enemies. All of the Voltlesses are easily handled by the sheer power of the Flamethrower. The Overseers are also more easily handled as well, as you can consistently get closer to them or away from them if they're charging with their spear attack, while continuing to burn them down to a crisp. There's also a massive amount in value in the War Pack against the flesh mobs, as they do their charged attack. Much like a charger, you can just teleport either away from their path or behind them and finish them off without much struggle. As for the Stingrays, alright, our Flamethrower is not going to do much here, but of course, one quick warp away to the left or to the right and the Stingray is immediately cancelled out. Lastly, for the Harvester, it's now easier than ever to avoid its beam, and it's easier than ever to teleport away from the Harvester before it can zap you with its one-hit arc attack. You can of course also apply a ton of pressure on Harvesters with the Flamethrower if you pair it up with the arc resistance armor set and are feeling a little bit ballsy. Lastly, over at the Automatons, we can utilize the War Pack to teleport away from trouble, or to teleport into the Automatons in question, or in some cases, even both. Against small to medium units, we can burn them to a crisp and easily teleport away, of course. We can also teleport past the Hulk and have a much easier time dominating them by quickly beaming their heat sinks. And hell, you can even teleport within range of a tank and burn it to the ground in just a few short seconds. Now, of course, all of this, I'm just addressing one of the many weapons that gain a substantial amount of value after pairing it with the Warp Pack. Realistically, the value will vary dramatically on the weapon and the faction in question. For example, overall, I don't think the Warp Pack adds that much value to the Stalwart in general. However, if we were to use this combination in a Predator Strain sub-faction seed, then immediately this is one of the most powerful loadouts we could even use against this specific planet type. As you do of course need to always keep your distance from Predator Stalkers and deal with them from a distance before they ram you down. Sadly, we don't have a Predator planet right now, so the gameplay you're watching is from a video before we even had the War Pack. But I believe that you guys understand where I'm coming from. The value will vary, and one thing remains true. The amount of power this War Pack adds to a wide variety of weapons is a substantial amount, in a way I truly believe we haven't seen much of before. We have had previously quite a few meta-breaking options be added to the game, but none of them in such an unconventional way. Usually, they're weapons that are so powerful you literally cannot ignore, such as the Thermite, which can one-shot 90% of the enemies in the game, or the Ultimatum Sidearm, which does about the same. And I think this new meta option, the War Pack, is going to open up a lot of doors and start a lot of conversations, especially inside the development team. The War Pack is proof that to create wildly powerful tool, it does not need to be something that resorts to one-shotting all of the threats ahead of us. It can just be a utility that's both fun to use, but not completely irrelevant and or niche. But the biggest message I think the War Pack should send is that items and weapons do not need to be believable. This is one of the biggest arguments from the development and design team. They often emphasize and double down that to create a new weapon, it needs to be believable to the universe of Helldivers 2. And honestly, the War Pack is like proof that this doesn't really need to be the case. And if anything can be believable in the universe of Helldivers 2. For example, I can just say, hey, the Automatons were building this small 5cm pistol for their Hulks that once shot, it blows up anything in its path. And now that we've conquered the planet of Claurel, we have seized their facility and made a handheld version of it in which Helldivers can now wield. You see where I'm coming from? What I'm saying is you can say anything about anything and just claim it's Illuminate or Automaton technology, and we have now turned it ours. So the lore remains true, and the item in question remains believable to this universe. The point I'm trying to make is the war pack is amazing. It's in my opinion the best item they have ever added to Helldivers 2 because of how it changes the game. It changes the game in a different way. It creates dozens of new potential loadouts, and there's skill to it. It also improves both solo play and grouped play, and it functions well against all three of the different factions. And best of all, the war pack is just really fun to use. And I really hope this fear of making weak items or items that don't make sense fade away with items such as the war pack, because I know for a fact the community loves items like these. I'm going to continue exploring loadouts with this beauty, but as for today, that's gonna be all. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace!